Hi there guys, here we are again with the cliff rock material creation. I have made these kind of prolonged connection lines. Now I am working on my last surface noise. I have just mixed a grunge map 004 with the black and white spots that we already have used for our last detail displacement using a subtract type of blending mode and 0.45 opacity. And I have also warped that map, that way you can get a map that follow your shapes. This is the result for now, and I have also added a blend with my black and white spots overlay, so I have those extra details. Of course, we are now going to lower the opacity level. The first thing that I am going to do is to create a gradient map. This way we can use a grayscale to drive a color gradient, so we can make all those color variations using the grayscale. If we load in a warp node and we use the same texture to warp that node, we're going to end up with this kind of variation. If you select your peak gradient right here at the bottom of this gradient editor window, you can actually drag inside your screens and choose some color values. I'm going to use my reference image that you have seen before. We can now play with these values until we end up with something that we can work with. I want actually to preview this node, so let's go in our base material and activate the base color input, and we can directly hook this up. At this point I'm going to make a much lighter variation of this gradient map, so let's change some values right here. We can use a blend and our height map to drive the color changes, and let's see. I think I am going a bit darker again with these values. If you want to preview what your mask is doing, just load in a uniform color. You can check at how you're actually blending the two textures. I am going to put a histogram scan between those two channels so I can select my values better. I can then reconnect my map, and this is the effect for now. In these slope sections of the rock we have a much more darker color, so I'm going to try to achieve that. I just wanted to select the slope values like these ones, and pretty much every high slope that I have here, I have derived my directional warp texture inside the edge detect node. Then using a blur node, I have blurred that texture, and I have selected these values with a histogram scan. Then I have also used a ambient occlusion and merged the two with a add type of blending mode. So what I am actually doing in here is trying to select just the edges of my shapes. So as you can see, we can control the white portion of the texture with this position value. I have also blended together this texture and this one because I wanted more detail right here in the corners, and I am also inverting this mask. Let's make another layer of coloring in our rock. Add another blend right here. We are going to use the mask, and we are going to test the mask effect using our uniform color. So this is how this mask is affecting my material, and this is exactly what we are looking for. If we want, we can also make this mask directional, and I will show you how we can do that soon. But before, I am just going to make another gradient map. We can duplicate this one, and I'm going to make a darker version again of this map. Let's try and extend a bit our mask. So now we have these darker values on these sides of our rocks, but our roughness map is not reflecting those changes. We have still to make our roughness map. I am going to add another layer of dark colors, and let's try to use a histogram select and our last height map to drive the mask of the blend. I am going to try and mix these two maps. We can now play with this edge darkening a bit. We have a lot of variations here, and this is not bad at all. Let's try something else. I have warped these already warped grayscale image with extreme values, in this one 1000 fold, so I'm using this blend to drive the displacement. Here we are getting some interesting changes on our texture, and I'm actually going to use that to drive our first two variations. This is the result with the other map. It looks much more realistic. At this point, I am going to make a couple of variations of this distorted map. So we are using a directional warp right here to drive our gradients, as I said before, and after the blend of the two images, using this mask, I am applying again another directional warp. I'm actually going to duplicate this directional warp and change the angle, and we are going to blend them together. Actually, our minimum blending mode is giving me the effect that I want, so this is starting to look pretty realistic. At this point, I think that I'm going to make also a roughness map, because I am getting pretty much confused with my values. So let's enable the roughness channel on our base material and let's play a bit with our roughness. To play a bit more with our values, we can use a level node right here. I am going to dock that, and I am going to do the same thing right here. Now we can play with our values. Let's load in a blend. We are going to use, I think, this map. We actually want to subtract from our main roughness. Right here we are going to have a more shine material, and right here a more rough material. As you can see, this is working pretty well. I am actually going to use the microscope view, mix it with the grunge map 004. So let's drag this in the noises and generators section. I actually want just my outer rings, and as you can see in here we have small dots inside. To fix that, we just need to make a copy of our microscope view and lower our warp intensity, and we can blend them together using a subtract type. So now, as you can see, I am subtracting this from this, and we just get the outer shapes. And this is not bad. I think that they are too much bigger, but for now we are going to stick with it and try to use it here at the bottom. And I am going to make another blend so we can preview our created map. And so this is the effect for now. I am just going to make some more tweaks. It actually took a while because it's not easy to emulate a natural growth, so I finally came up with something that I might like, and I am also passing this into a level, but I actually don't need this anymore because I have a level right here. I am then masking everything with a overlay type of blending mode. So I have this kind of clumping with some other shapes scattered around. I am displacing my shapes using a directional warp. We actually need to add some more height to our rock to account for the moss height. I actually want to use the right moss coloring, make a level, and I'm going to pass this blend through this level, and we can play with the color just by tweaking the levels node. And I am also going to make a variation of this map right here. I actually want to use a blur and a histogram select. I'm going to tweak a bit my heights right here, so let's do that right away. Now our moss is getting some height, and we can tweak that value using this opacity slider. We actually want to subtract this map from the other map, so we can have our values only on the peaks of our rock. Now we can select the height of this moss to appear. So if we play with this level node, as you can see, we can decide where our moss is going to be. I am going to make a color variation, duplicating this level node. So we have a darker version of this same texture, and we can actually blend them together using this mask. And as you can see, now we have this color variation. So near the edges we are going to get a much more darker version of this texture. I'm going to use a slop blur to distort these shapes, and we can drive the slop blur using some cool map. Let's try the black and white spots. At this point I want to make another moss variation, because in our reference, as you can see right here, we have these white moss. As you can see, I have made a couple of variations of the same moss. So this is the first one that we did, and for this one at the bottom I have actually used a histogram select and blurring this first mask that we have used and passing it through a histogram select is going to allow you to select a range and also a position. You're going to get that cool ring effect. This isn't bad, but as you can see in the reference, as we get closer to the tip of the rock, we are actually going to need more moss. So I am going to make again another variation. I have made this kind of clumping inside the white moss. So for to do that, I have used the original grunge map 004 and some levels to change the values to a bit darker version. Then I have inverted the blur, which I have used here in the bottom, and I have used a slop blur grayscale to achieve this kind of shrinking effect. And then I have used a warp and finally a blend to achieve this type of mask. So now we have clumping in the tips of the rocks. This is pretty convincing, so I'm very happy with it. And using our slop blur grayscale intensity, we can actually decide how much of this white moss clumping we have. And we can actually create our grunge map using these nodes. So let's go ahead and do that. For now, I am just going to keep this in my library so I can save it later, and we are going to continue on the creation of our material. I'm actually going to use my normal map, so let me load in an RGBA split and my normal map. We actually need a histogram select. As you can see, as I drag down my position values, I get only the topper sides of our rocks. This is where we want our dirt, so let's try to apply this. So for now, this is the effect that we get. We have dirt only in the upper sides, in the upper parts of our rock, and this is pretty cool. To complete our material, we just need to add another layer of roughness for our dirt. So I'm going to add a blend, and we can use this mask to drive our last blend for our roughness. And we can screen that, And I think we are pretty much done, guys. This is the final substance. This was a pretty long tutorial, but I have given you so much information on how I do my materials, and as always, don't forget to try to make new things and of course use your brain. That's all, guys. For now, this is going to become a quick time lapse of my substance rendering over Blender, and I hope you like it. You can find this substance over my site. I will put the link here over my description, and let me know what you think. Bye, guys.